Hi, this is Becky Spain, your instructor for business communication. Today we will be covering Chapter 7 in Excellence in Business Communication. This chapter is entitled Crafting Messages for Digital Channels. Now with Chapter 7 we start Part 3 of our book, which looks at crafting brief business messages. This chapter offers practical advice for crafting professional messages for the digital channel, starting with an overview of the most important digital channels used in our business world today, and followed with specific advice for using social networks, information and content sharing websites. We'll look at emails, instant messaging, blogging, and even microblogging and podcasting. So let's begin with learning objective number 1, which is to identify the major digital channels used for brief business messages and describe the 9 compositional modes needed for digital media. Social media represents a fundamental shift in the way companies handle business communication. The shift is taking place and companies continue to adopt their internal and external communication practices. For many businesses, social media and how to use it is really pretty new. So social media are digital media that empower the stakeholders as participants in the communication process by allowing them to share content, to review and revise content, to respond to content, and then also to contribute new content. The changes brought about by social media run much deeper than the tools themselves. Many people now rely heavily on content sharing through social media tools to get information of personal and professional interests. Many customers and professionals frequently engage in content snacking, which is rapidly gathering information in multiple small segments from multiple sources. The field of business communication is a lot more interesting, but also a lot more complicated than it was even just a few years ago. And increasingly, employees expect the leaders in their organizations to be active in social media. So let's look at some of our media choices for brief messages. So today's business communicators actually have a broad range of options for sending short messages. There are social networks, but there's also email, instant messaging, texting, blogging and microblogging, and even podcasting. So as you can tell from this list, a lot of businesses use many of the same tools that you use in your own personal communications each day. While much of your business communication as you move forward in the business world is likely to be via digital means, don't overlook several situations where you should use a printed message over digital alternatives, like when you want to make a formal impression, or when you're legally required to provide information in a printed form. When you need to have a secure record, it's a great way to also keep those items. Sometimes even just when you want to stand out from the flood of digital messages that so many of us receive all day, every day. Fortunately, the basic communication skills required usually transfer from one system to another. So whether you're using social media that's digital or whether you're writing. You can succeed with written communication in virtually all digital media by using one of the 9 compositional modes. So you can use conversational elements, much as you would if you were writing an instant message. You can use comments and critiques, such as you would if you were expressing an opinion or providing feedback online. You can use orientations, where you actually help guide your audience through the material. You can use summaries, which are just that, summarizing the material. We've already talked about using narratives and storytelling. You can provide updates, you can make announcements, and of course then there's always tutorials. So writing for social media requires a different approach than for other traditional media. Social media can change the relationship between the sender and the receiver, and because the relationship has changed, the nature of the message needs to change as well. So remember that it's a conversation and not a lecture or a sales pitch. You want to remember to write informally, but not carelessly. And you also want to use concise, informative headlines. Headlines are extremely important in social media. You not only want your reader to know what to expect, but you also want search engines to be able to identify specific content so that it can read your leaders to your posts. And finally, think before you post. Remember that when you're posting in regard to your company or the position within your company, that you are representing your organization or your company online. And you need to assume that every message you send in any digital medium will be stored forever and may be read by people far beyond your original audience or your original intended readers. So when you're posting, make sure that you're thinking about these elements. And of course, you need to make sure that you're optimizing content for mobile devices. Mobile expands your options as a content creator, and it gives your audience members a wider range of more engaging ways to consume your content. Mobile also offers a range of exciting ways to enhance your audience's experience, such as with gamification, which is simply the addition of game playing aspects of the app. I know I'm a big Starbucks fan. I have their app on my phone, and I often frequent their store, and I know that they're constantly coming out with games as ways to keep us involved as consumers and to encourage us to make purchases that we haven't made in the past, and they tie that to games where we're trying to get more points so we get more things free, and we can do tic-tac-toes or make certain kind of matches, and that pushes us to make purchases or make purchases at times of the day that we haven't normally made. So it's constantly being used as a way to up the game and increase our purchasing with that specific brand. I don't know how much experience that you've had with wearable technology, but wearable technology pushes the radical connectivity of mobile to the next level. From virtual reality goggles to our smartwatches to body movement sensors, and there's lots and lots more things coming. My husband tells me that at some point in the future, we will be able to get our vital signs, our blood pressure and heart rate just by holding our steering wheel while we're driving. And even mobile podcasting. Our smartphone-based podcasting tools make it really easy to record audio on the go and to post finished podcasts to blogs or websites. Moving on to learning objective number 2, describe the use of social networks in business communication. So social networks are online services that enable individuals and organizational members to form connections and share information. Social networks have become a major force in both internal and external business communication in our recent years. In addition to Facebook, a variety of public and private social networks are used by businesses and professionals. And categories include public general purpose networks, of which Facebook is the most significant one of those. And then there's public specialized networks, including networks for small business owners, those for connecting entrepreneurs and investors, and those created by individual companies to enhance the sense of community among their customers. And then there are private corporate networks. With their ability to reach virtually unlimited numbers of people through a variety of digital formats, social networks are a great fit for many of your business's communication needs, such as recruiting employees or business partners, through fostering collaboration, and then through understanding your target markets. Companies can use social networks to find potential employees, or even short-term contractors or subject matter experts for a project they have, or even for products and services that are needed. With millions of people using social media, smart companies are listening to them and talking with them. In addition, companies are also gathering market intelligence from social media. So there's lots of opportunities to use social networks to further business needs. For some companies, that's a new thought process, and as you go to work for organizations, do some research and find out how they're using their social networks, and then make recommendations for how they can expand their use of social networks to increase a lot of different things that we've talked about, their partnerships, their customer base, their recruiting. There's just a ton of different ways that you can use social media that companies that you go to work for may not realize, and this may be a real opportunity for you to make a name for yourself and to maybe even broaden your responsibilities at work. As you look for opportunities, make sure that you are aware of some of the strategies for social networks. The norms and practices of business social networking continue to evolve, so you want to make sure that you're staying on top of that and that you are making the most of your social networking, both your personal branding as well as any company communications, by following some of these guidelines. So make sure that you are paying attention to the types of messages that you're seeing on each of the websites, and that you choose the best compositional mode for each message based on its purpose and the network. Make sure that you're offering value in the content. Don't forget to join existing conversations in addition to starting your own. Answer questions, solve problems, and respond to rumors or misinformation that's out there. And make sure that you maintain a consistent personality. Each social network is a unique environment with particular norms of communication. So maintain a consistent personality across all of the networks in which you are active. Moving on to learning objective number 3, explain how companies and business professionals can use information and content sharing websites. So social networks allow members to share information and media items as part of the networking experience, but a variety of systems have been designed specifically for sharing content. The field is diverse and it's still evolving, but the possibilities can be divided into user-generated content sites, media curation sites, and then community Q&A sites. So let's look at the first one, user-generated sites. YouTube, Flickr, Yelp, these are all user-generated content sites, or UGCs. The user, rather than the website owners, contribute most or all of the content, which has become a serious business tool. As with other social media, the keys to effective user generation content are making it valuable and making it easy. First, provide content that people want to see and want to share with others. Keep your videos short, generally no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. And second, make material easy to find, easy to consume, and easy to share through email or Facebook, Twitter, or other platforms. For content curation sites, content curation involves people with expertise or interest in a particular field who collect and then republish materials on a particular topic. So Pinterest is a great example, or Scoop It. These are most popular sites that you probably are familiar with. Curation has a potential to bring the power of community and shared expertise to many different fields. So ultimately, it could reshape audience behavior and therefore the practice of business communication. And then community Q&A sites. Community Q&A sites are websites on which visitors answer questions posted by other visitors or by representatives of companies. And I don't know about you, but I actually use these quite a bit. I often find that if I'm stuck, especially using something in regards to an application or to my Mac or even to my iPhone, that I use these websites to help me to know how to fix an issue that I don't have the expertise to fix on my own. And I don't want to hire somebody to help me, and I've actually been able to find lots of answers out there to commonly asked questions, especially whenever I'm having an issue like with technology. Both public and member-only sites are in operation, so sometimes you do have to pay a membership fee in order to be a part of the site, or you have to have some type of membership. And responding to questions on Q&A sites can be a great way to build your own personal brand, as well as demonstrate your company's commitment to customer service and to counter misinformation about your company and its products. All right, learning objective number 4. Describe the evolving role of email in business communication and explain how to adopt the 3-step writing process to email messages. So email has been a primary communication medium for many companies for decades. I know that for me, it's the primary way that I communicate and has been for many years. However, newer tools such as instant messaging, blogs and microblogs, social networks, shared workspaces are taking over specialized tasks for which they're better suited than email. Therefore, email can seem a bit old school, but it's still one of the most important business communication tools. And depending on the company that you go to work for, you may find that that's the norm, or you may find that the organization you work for is trying to step away and utilize some of these other types. So advantages and disadvantages, we've pretty much already covered those. So let's move on to the planning, writing, and completing process of emails. I'm sure you're beginning to see a pattern here, because no matter what we're doing, we're planning, then we're writing, and then we're completing. So for planning the email message, first of all, you want to analyze your situation and gather information, and then you want to organize your message, just like any other message that we have been looking at writing. Of course, one of the biggest issues with email is email overload, in that you have a tendency to get anything and everything in your email, and then the people who have email begin to go through what they're receiving quicker and quicker and deleting things, sometimes without stopping to read. They just read the headline or see who it's from, and they're deleting. So in order to keep from adding to this problem, you want to make sure that every message that you send is useful and has a business-related purpose. Even fairly short messages, spend a moment or two on the message planning that we've gone over in Chapter 4. Analyze the situation, gather necessary information for your readers, organize your message. You'll save time in the long run because you'll craft a more effective message on your first attempt, and your readers will get the information they need, and they won't have to generate follow-up questions asking for clarification and additional information. And if the people that you work with, you'll build the reputation for credibility. You'll build reputation for having good emails. They're going to read your emails because they're going to know that when you send out an email, it's necessary, it's well written, tells them what they need to know, what they need to do. And so you're going to get a stronger readership of what you send out. And we don't want to be writing things and sending things out we can't get anybody to read. So let's look at writing the email. We want to remember that even though it's an email, it's still a business communication, and we want to make sure that we have a quality message, some of which we just talked about. We want to recognize that business emails are more formal than social email, and the consequences of bad writing and poor judgment can be much more serious, especially because it's a printed document. It has legal weight, as well as there's going to be a permanent record of it. Remember that your subject line is one of the most important parts of your email message. Make your subject line informative and compelling so people will read them. Do more than just describe and clarify your message. Build interest with keywords, quotations, questions. And this is also probably a good place to stop and talk for a second about emoticons. So before you use emojis in your business writing, you need to make sure that that's the norm for your organization. So the book is kind of iffy on that. It says that more and more organizations are becoming more and more okay with doing that, and that it's okay to do that some. I don't know that I would agree with the authors on that. I think that you need to stay away from using any emojis in your business communication emails unless you find out that that's the norm for your organization. So that's one of those that's just better to not, unless you find out that it's okay to, and then it would be okay to add that to your writing. But I would just stay away from that altogether, unless, once again, you find that it's the norm for your organization. And then finally, completing the email message. So before you hit that send button, take a few moments to revise and proofread your message. Particularly for important messages, take a few moments of revising and proofreading, because it might save you hours of headaches and damage control. So here is a real life example of something that actually happened when I was working in corporate America, and I won't tell you which company because I really think it was a major faux pas that happened, and it was actually the HR manager. She had a document that had listed, it was an attachment, but it had listed every single salary of every single person within the organization. And I'm not really quite sure how, but that document accidentally got sent out, attached to an email that went to the entire company. So as people tapped onto that document, they were able to open the attachment and read what not only they were making, being told to the entire company, but also what their boss, their peers, their boss's boss was making. So huge faux pas. I'm not really quite sure how she attached that document. They did go and try to retrieve that and erase it as best they could using IT, but there were a lot of people who were able to access that information. Then, of course, as you can imagine, a lot of people upset to find out that they were making more or less money than people that they felt they should be making more or less money than. And that was all simply a keystroke error, because she didn't take the time to proofread and make sure that she had the right email that she was attaching that attachment to before she sent it out. So huge mistakes can be made if you don't take the extra moment, especially on important documents, or if you're handling important documents, make sure that you haven't accidentally forwarded them to someone that you shouldn't. A couple other quick tips on completing your email, and then we'll move on to learning objective number 5. But don't say that the message is urgent, or send it high priority unless it truly is urgent or high priority for the person that you're sending it to. Maybe you're wanting the answer as quickly as possible, but is that really high priority to the person that you're sending it to? Be really careful about using that like on everything that you send out, because it's going to be like the boy who cried wolf, and pretty soon no one is going to listen to you at all. And another one is make sure that you are hitting reply instead of reply all, and only use reply all when it truly is necessary for you to reply to everyone in the group, such as if you are all having an ongoing conversation. But it is very irritating when you're working in the business world, and you'd be surprised how much this happens. An email will go out from the boss to 40 different employees, and then instead of sending back saying that time won't work for me to just the person who sent the email out, or thanks for addressing this, they send reply all, and then you're getting all of these messages as a follow-up to the message from your boss that really have no value to you whatsoever, and it's really just irritating to get all of those. So it surprises me how many times I see professionals make that mistake in the work world, and I get copied on emails that have nothing to do with me, and then I just have to go in, determine that it doesn't have anything to do with me, and then delete it, and then I'm saying under my breath, idiot. So just make sure that you only use reply all whenever it truly is a situation where you need to reply all. Okay, moving on, learning objective number 5. Describe the business benefits of instant messaging and identify guidelines for effective IMs in the workplace. Now, if you are actively working in a business environment, I'm sure that you're finding that this is becoming more and more relevant in most business places. And it really wasn't that many years ago that if you were instant messaging, it was like a big no-no. And now it's part of many business cultures and how they actually get each other's attention during the day on items that they need quick responses to, or quick follows-ups, or even just a, did you say 20% on this? I'm working on the report, just need that real quick, and then you just send it back really quick. It pops up on your screen while you're working. It's kind of like someone sticking their head in your office and saying it, and it can keep you moving forward on a project. So lots of really good reasons to use IMs, especially in the day when we are often working with people who are not physically in the same location as us, whether we're working with someone in a different state or in a different building, or we're home officing. It's not possible for us to like pop down the hall and just ask that really quick question. So IMing can actually mimic those conversations that if we were in the same building, we'd be having face to face. So lots of positive reasons. Now let's look at some of the negative. Of course, whenever technology goes, trouble seems to follow, and the potential drawback of IMs include things such as, on the top of everybody's list these days, security issues, the need for users to authenticate before they're using the devices, the programs, the challenge of logging messages for later review or archiving. You look back and you're like, what did we say on that? And the conversation is gone. The incompatibility of IMing messages systems. However, as IMing is becoming more and more prevalent in the workplace, many of these problems are being overcome. Okay, so adapting the 3-step process for writing IMs. Once again, you want to plan, you want to write, and you want to complete, which may seem like overkill for an IM, but it will help you to keep from the back and forth. Just take a second of planning. It'll help you to decide what you need to deliver in your message in a coherent and complete way that'll minimize the number of times that you guys are going back and forth. Make sure you're using an appropriate business style, though you can be a little bit more casual. You don't want to be extremely casual. And then, of course, just quickly scan it one more time before you hit that send button to make sure that it says what you want it to say and that you're going to get the response that you need because what you've said is understood. Using workplace IMs effectively. Make sure that you use the IMs courteously. Keep in mind that there are times when people are trying to get things done and constantly being interrupted can be a negative thing. One way when you're working at your desk and you need to not be interrupted, of course, you can use the away status so that you can actually get uninterrupted work time. Finally, it's really easy whenever you have your IM message thing open, and especially if conversations get to be very casual, just start sending either personal messages or personal or private information, and you need to be really careful that that doesn't happen in the workplace. Learning objective number 6, blogging and microblogging. Describe the uses in business communication and briefly explain how to adapt the 3-step process. So blogs are online journals that are easier to personalize and update than conventional websites, and they're now a major force in business communication. There are actually millions of business-oriented blogs in operation right now, and blogs have become an important source of information for consumers and professionals alike. I know I've even thought about starting my own blog. So effective blogs and microblogs. So the first point is to use a personal, authentic style. So while many of the business messages that you're going to send out are actually written for a large audience, and oftentimes they're carefully scripted, in contrast, for a business blog, you want to be sure that what you're writing is looks like it's being written from an individual, and it actually exhibits your own personal style, because your audience is going to relate to this fresh approach and is going to build a closer emotional bond with the blogger's organization as a result of that. You also want to make sure that you feature topics of peak interest and encourage your audiences to join into the conversation. Understanding business applications of blogging. So blogs are a potential solution whenever you have a continuing stream of information to share with virtually any online audience. So some of the ways that businesses are using blogs: companies can use blogs as a social media hub and actually anchor their social media presence. Blogs are a convenient way to keep project teams up to date, so they can actually be used for project management and for team communication. Corporate blogs can keep employees up to date on corporate news and other news that might be important to their industry and other timely issues. Customers can check a company's blogs for answers to frequently asked questions, as well as advice about products and tips for use. Marketing departments and public relations departments can share company news with the general public and even with the media. Using a blog is a great way to let potential employees know about your company, the people who work there, and the nature of the company's culture, and use it to actually attract potential employees, or use it as a recruiting tool depending on the industry that you're in. Sometimes recruiting employees is a major focus. And finally, they can be used for market research and feedback. So it's a way to give an opportunity for customers to give feedback or to solicit feedback. It can also be used if you have a crisis within your company to help communicate information about the crisis, or to do damage control. And it's really great opportunity to do some community building. So the 3-step writing process, of course, applies to blogging as well, which is plan, write, and complete. You should be very familiar with this by this point. The planning process is particularly important if you're considering starting a new blog, because you're planning an entire communication channel and not just one single message. So pay close attention to your audience, your purpose, and your scope. And after you begin writing your blog, the careful planning needs to continue with each message that you write. So write in your own personal style. Be comfortable in your writing. Bear in mind, though, that comfortable does not mean careless or sloppy writing. That will damage your credibility. Naturally, your readers will expect you to be knowledgeable, but if you don't have all the information yourself, simply provide links to other blogs and websites. In completing your message for your blog is usually quite easy. Just evaluate the content and readability of your message, proofread for any errors, and post your message using your blogging systems tool. If your blog doesn't already have one, be sure to include one or more news feed options so that your audience can automatically receive headlines. Finally, make your material easier to find by tagging it with descriptive words so that readers can be directed to your blog. All right. Microblogging in business. It's a variation on blogging in which messages are sharply restricted to specific character counts. Like regular blogging, microblogging is now a mainstream business medium. Many of the concepts of regular blogging apply to microblogging, although the severe length limitations call for a different approach to composition. Your microblogs are frequently used for providing company updates or offering coupons or notice of a sale that's coming up, presenting tips on product usage, sharing relevant or interesting information from experts, announcing headlines for new blog posts. Microblogging also fuels the back channel in meetings and presentations. Customer service is becoming a popular use of one of these engines, which of course is Twitter. And we have a president who really likes to use Twitter, so we can see how Twitter can be effective in getting information out. And then finally, Twitter and other microblogs can also be a good source for crowdsourcing research questions where you're asking one of your followers for input or advice. Make sure that your messages are part of your overall communication strategy. Make sure that your tweets are or posts are entertaining, surprising, informative, engaging. And make sure that whatever you're posting has value. So, learning objective number 7, explain how to adopt the three-step writing process for podcasts. Now, podcast is a process of recording audio or video files and distributing them online through RSS subscriptions. Podcasting combines the media richness of voice or visual communication with the convenience of portability. The most obvious use for podcasting is to replace existing audio and video. I'm getting tired, you could tell. Messages. Training is another good use. You can often use podcasting for any training that you need to do, and people gives them the opportunity to do that at different times instead of everybody having to be assembled like in a classroom all together at one time. It's also a great way to offer free previews of what you might have in the way of a seminar or a training class. And many business writers and consultants are using podcasts to build their own personal brands and to enhance their products and service offerings. So let's look at the three-step writing process for podcasts. So in the planning step, determine whether you're creating a limited number of podcasts or if this is going to be an ongoing channel with regular recordings. As you organize the content, pay close attention to your previews, your transitions, your reviews, and then these steering devices are especially vital in audio recordings. One of the attractions of podcasting is the conversational person-to-person feel of the recording. So unless you need to capture exact wording, speaking from an outline or notes rather than a prepared script is often the best choice. No one likes to be read to. Effective podcasting, like effective stories, have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And then finally, for the completing step, keep in mind that editing is much more difficult in an audio or video medium. Therefore, take the extra time and care to revise your script and think through your speaking notes before you begin to record. The closer you can get the recording in one take, the more productive that you're going to be. And when each recording is ready, use the systems tool to prepare the audio file. Make sure that you review it before you publish it, and then publish it via a news feed. And then we will end this lecture with a quick look at the required resources for podcasting. The equipment needed to record a podcast will depend on the productivity quality you want to achieve and whether you plan to record in a studio or on the go. Most personal computers and smartphones have audio recording capabilities with built-in microphones, and free editing software is available online. If you need higher production quality or greater flexibility, you'll need to add additional pieces of hardware or software such as an audio processor or a mixer or even a better microphone to get that more sophisticated recording sound and editing software. You'll also need to improve the acoustics of the room in which you're recording to make sure that there's no outside noises or echoes or other problems that might creep into your recording. So podcasts can be distributed in several ways, including through media stores such as iTunes, dedicated podcast hosting services, or on a blog with content that supports the podcasting channel. That concludes our lecture on chapter 7, and I will see you again when we look at chapter 8, which is writing routine and positive messages.